Hey, my friends. Glad to be here. Glad to be live on two different platforms, which have been my personal choice after. Let me set up the microphone for 1 second. So, these two platforms are now my ultimate choice. Uh, Finally, I realized that I want to do live streams and I want to produce more content specifically for YouTube. And Instagram remains one of my favorites. I'm passing down on TikTok, and rightfully so. Maybe for the time being, I'm passing on it, but it just haven't shown the loyalty, and haven't shown the depth, the watch time that I think is monumental for me, as this is like my North Star metric. If I don't see people hanging in and, staying with me to keep up with me and understand where I'm coming from, I don't want to be impressing people like from the first glance. That's certainly a skill, and it's a great and important skill, but you can't please everyone, especially you cannot please everyone from your first take, from your first impression, right? So in this perspective from this perspective, I beg your pardon, I realize that I much rather have lower number of people uh, checking out my stuff, but more loyal and conscious and thoughtful people who can learn from me, not only from sound baits or clickbaits. That's why YouTube is an obvious choice. So today's topic is the art of asking questions. I like putting this word art in front of a lot of things right now because I feel like communication, presenting, building relationships, from a lot of angles resemble arts, right? You gotta be poised. You gotta be understandable. You gotta understand the rules of the game, and you gotta be empathetic. And I think this is something that people who create art can really relate to. For our topic, I've always wanted people all throughout my life to understand that I'm listening to what they're saying, and this has been an ingrained part of me. That if you feel that I'm listening to you, and I'm not just pretending to listen, but I'm actually listening to you, that means that I do care about you. So listening, right, and active listening and empathetic listening is just a sign that I actually respect you and I want you to know that, right? There's like a hidden compliment. By asking good questions, you're complimenting the other party, you're complimenting the person who you're conversing because they understand that you take interest in what they're saying. And another vital point here to mention is that great listening, since we're on the listening subject for just a few moments, great listening equals to having the person you communicate with understand, like having him or her feel heard, right? So these are the uh, primary words, just the things that we should all kind of target for. If the other party feels heard, it's not just like just listening or just knocking along. It's actually doing something so that other person understands that, and feels heard, understands that you really paying attention, right? And I recently came across this fascinating meditation sort of concept that I shared it on one of my videos. That meditation is meditation. Hey, Yaroslav, let me address all the questions in the end of the live stream, if you don't mind, because I have like the main program that I need to. Yeah, thanks. Uh, so meditation is originally designed to kind of get rid of the thoughts in the moment, to be present, right? To kind of reshape your brain, right? But this alternative perspective was really interesting, that you can also um, train your brain and be present, not for yourself but for other person. So basically meditation can help us to stay focused on one and only piece, like the one and only essential activity that's going on right now. For example, if you are listening to me now, you can practice, you can have a bunch of things that's going on in your life, but you can try to practice, like just block yourself from all these distractions and focus on my voice and focus on what I'm trying to deliver to you right now, right? So, and when we actually exercise such a active listening, asking asking splendid questions, exceptional questions, don't pose such a big problem, because guess what? When you are involved, engaged with what the person is saying, you definitely will have something to ask. Sure thing, if you are really taking interest in the person and you care about the person. So that's like a basic premise for us. Great listening is making the other person feel heard, right? I'm gonna quickly list the benefits of asking great questions. So we already stated that we can establish rapport, we can become better communicators, we can kind of prosper in our business dealings and our personal life by having um, clear by having efficient communication and asking great clear questions. We can become better listeners, we can become better human beings, and of course that might help us to pitch present ourselves, and get more context about whatever thing that we're about to connect to, right? Or like either a job opportunity or a project, or like whatever it might be. So just acquiring more context about this and that, this or that thing. So now let's get down to real hacks. I promised some hacks, and all these live hacks are the continuation of my journey, as an entrepreneur as a friend, as an influencer now, as an interviewer, since I've decided to become a podcaster also. So these are the hints are assembled throughout my life, and I haven't didn't expect to get like so many of them, because the idea to have this stream was born like an hour ago. I just came back from public speaking community, public speaking sort of event where I performed, and yeah, just realized that I want to share this piece of information with you. So for the hack number one, first hack in asking great questions is always show the knowledge of the subject. So either you're whether you're dealing with a business partner, like a girl in personal relationship, like potential investor, whoever it might be, by establishing yourself early, right? By showing that you know the context and you know the background or just a profile of the person, right? You already making better impression of yourself. So we all know this phrase that failing to plan is planning to fail. So knowing not only this, the sub like the details of the subject, but also some details about the person who you're communicating with really helps us to ask great questions. The examples that I always said, for example, uh, I remember I pitched one of my businesses to Dmitry Dubilet, founder of Monobank, and he's also founder of Smartass Fitness Club in Kiev. So and he goes there. He like hits his own gym. Sometime now he's outside Ukraine, but back then I encountered him uh, in the in the gym, basically at the first floor, and I approached and I asked like, "Hi, Dmitry. Um, I have one question with respect to customer success," and I knew that's where I realized that's where I showcased my knowledge of the subject, because I know he's been into customer success. And the other point was that I knew that in one of his interviews he said that they're basing their decisions on the polls that they take, right? The surveys that they take and ask their customers about different things. So I just asked him like, um, what do you is this the only path, the only method for you to take to make decisions, right? And that was my conversation starter. So you need a conversation starter, and if your conversation starter is basically furnished up with your knowledge of the person's interest or the person's background, it already puts you in a pretty favorable light. Okay, so show the knowledge of the subject to ask questions. Sometimes you might know the answer to the question, right? So and that brings me to life hack number two: ask flattering questions. uh, Flattering is fraud upon. I mean, it's not super recommended, because that actually goes in the line with manipulation, because if you flatter too much, you can it can be perceived as manipulation techniques. But that's why I say flatter to an extent, right? You can make people feel great about themselves when you kind of insert a hidden flattery, right, inside of your question, right? um, I don't know, like you can even say that I admire the way how you treat your customers, And I know that you put a lot of emphasis on this in your business. Henceforth, in my business or in my startup, we have doubts on how to manage like customer success, customer support department. Should we kind of invest a lot into this or not? So you see where I'm coming from, right? Show the knowledge, but also flatter people a little bit, just a little bit, so that they don't understand that you are doing this intentionally. While, of course, you're doing this intentionally, right? You want them to like you. And that, in a natural and organic fashion, takes us to the next point. Chris Voss, he's a well-known communication expert, once said that likability is the one prominent thing that pretty much decides everything. That pretty much impacts the outcome of your negotiations or your conversation. So if the people like you, and I know that we, since we're super highly socially attuned animals, we can sense the energetic field, right? That people are exchanging with us, and in a way, we already feel if you we are predisposed to like the person or not. Even now, when you're listening to me, watching at me, there's a lot of likability that's playing the role, right? Uh, we just like how some people look, how some people talk, what type of energy they bring to the table, and so on and so forth. Uh, but I mean, in order to be liked, you have you have to like, ask these great questions in the beginning, to set the table pretty early, to give yourself a chance, right? Um, I can give you another example. I remember I once wrote a message to Alexander Konotopsky. He's a founder and CEO of Ajax Systems. And I didn't know the guy. Like, if you think like that my investor introduced me to him, no. Like, I was totally unfamiliar with the guy. And I just shoot a message to him on Facebook, and I said something along the lines like, we, I know that you definitely have the set of rules for production, and I knew definitely like that he's got a production based in Ukraine, where they construct and assemble all these details to create these gorgeous solutions. And I said like I have the production too. So another piece of advice here, derived from this communication, is that find the common ground, find something that connects you to the person who you're talking to. If you can find a common ground, and the mastery, the ultimate art, the ultimate science of asking this great question, if you can actually pack a little bit of flattery, knowledge of the subject, knowledge of the person's background, and also connect yourself in some way to this person. Do you understand? Like, you don't want to put too much into your question, because questions should be concise, but there's difference between the like first question that you ask, that is in a way is your pitch. Sometimes you don't do the pitch, sometimes what you have is the question, and you have to, inside of your question, you can present who you are. And by finding common ground, by finding this mutual uh, interest, like you're putting yourself in the same boat with the person, and the person might actually consider you to be their partner or someone later on. So asking questions is so powerful. Now, um, I hope this sounds reasonable. What I'm saying definitely sounds reasonable to me. As I uncover this topic, I find it even more and more remarkable and fascinating. And there's definitely different times and different people. What I just mentioned is that sometimes you have the bandwidth, right? You have the time to ask more prolonged question. You have the time to put in the knowledge of the subject, the knowledge of the person. You can tie yourself together with the person. That's when you have the time. But sometimes what you have is like 10, 15 seconds, and you cannot just overwhelm people with so much information. Like yesterday, I was inviting a new guest on my podcast. I was inviting Igor Novikov. He's a former Zelensky's advisor. He's a founder and owner of Singularity University in Ukraine. And this guy is really busy. And he said, "Give me a call for like 2 minutes." And I have 2 minutes to present myself and to ask him some questions. So I didn't have the room to yak, to just bullshit for too long, right? That's where you have to understand, like, where the questions should be to the point, and concise. That is which is my next secret. Um, when you are in communication, just a second. I lost the train of my thoughts. Yeah, so conciseness boosts our communication skills in general, especially when we're speaking a foreign language. When we're speaking foreign language, it's a lot of my students and a lot of my clients who I like prepare for like business communication or business presentations. They lack this brevity, this conciseness, ability to stop yourself. Your sentences should be short, to the point, so that people could follow up where the beginning, where the catalyst, the main thing, right, that you are delivering, that what you do using your like register and pitch. At the same time, some people just talk, and they're never seems like they can talk forever. You don't understand where there's a full stop. In communication, imagine that you sometimes it's a good trick. Imagine that you are actually writing, not typing a message with a emoji face, but actually writing an article. And when there is a full stop, there is a full stop. Just like an author respects the reader, giving him punctuation, right? Signs. You can respect someone who you're communicating with, and you making full stops so that people could actually absorb what you just said, or just kind of have the time to understand, maybe say something in return, right? Because communication is a two-way street. So you can check some of my podcasts. I have guests that are just talking. And you can check, for example, Mark Herberg, an American professor and a business person, MIT professor. I have the podcast with him both on YouTube and Instagram. I think no, on YouTube now. Check how this guy paces his words. He gives super concise, clear, easy to understand responses. And he's taking care of you. He's a writer. He wrote a book, actually. And I think that is where this crucial skill is coming from. So if you are um, considerate of your audience, of the people who you're talking to, you will give them a chance to understand and to maybe give their give their reply. So why am I saying all this? By practicing asking short questions, you're and writing them and composing them, right? Short doesn't mean mm, blank or doesn't mean blanket. Short could be really, really meaningful at the same time. Short answer short question could be really, really efficient and substantial in terms of the answer that the person will give to it. So trying our skill of asking short question, like practicing the skill is something that will help us in communication as well. That's actually the art that I'm actually learning the ropes of right now as in my podcasts, because as a podcaster, as a host, your job is to open up the other party, right? Sometimes there are people who are more shy. Sometimes they need your reassurance. Sometimes they need you to compliment them. Thank you, Raman. So it always a matter of who you're dealing with, right? And so same advice that I've always given to job applicants: adapt, right, and customize your communication style to the people who you are dealing with. Yeah. Okay. Also depends on if you want something from them, which brings me to this next point. Don't ask people for advice, or not even advice. Don't ask people for help unless you really feel that uh, you have already established some kind of a report, right? Um, I mean, I don't even know if I should cover this thing, but in a way, we are always, if since we want to develop ourselves, we want to grow on ourselves. So each self growth is predicated on our ability to surround ourselves with quality people. And if we surround ourselves with people who are better than ourselves, who we consider to be more successful, prosperous, intelligent, um, empathetic, maybe whatever it might be, chances are that they might not have as much desire, right? Not might have as much will to talk to you as you want to talk to them, right? So in this and there, it's totally fine, because in my life I've always strived to talk to communicate with people who I might not be of the super interest for, right? And that's totally fine. Now, so the previous points, the previous advice that I given you qualify here, but I mean, you should read the room. It's just like when you're giving public speeches. Read the person and understand that if they are um, in a good mood, for God's sake, right? What they need to to be in the position to help you. Because if you're asking for investments, right? Or you asking for advice. I have a friend who's a career coach, and by the sound of it, she's also like a life coach. And believe me, I have a lot of uh, sort of enticement, temptation to get in touch with her and ask for an advice, right? But I mean, sometimes there's always time and place. There's it's a great rule that I picked from Simon Sinek, is that saying truth, having time and always have the time and place, proper time and place. Like, for example, if you have a friend who's performing in the theater, and you uh, checked out these checked out her performance, and performance was just awful, just abysmal. You couldn't sit there. But when she after the play, when she kind of runs into you and says, "How was it?" You don't say awful. You don't. You just don't give the truth at the inappropriate time. So there's always time and place for saying the truth. You can actually say that I was really, don't lie. You can say that I was really pleased to see you, this and that. But maybe in a day or two, you can call her and say, let me think what I really think about the performance, right? Or about the play, whatever. So, and I think that the same rule applies to asking questions. Like, when you see the person is just missing, uh, is just lacking the energy, you can't ask for anything. This is the advantage that empathetic people have. I consider myself to be pretty empathetic. We can feel, well, every person feels. You just feel if the person got the its full cup or an empty cup. Unfortunately, we can't be full cup all day long. Life is pretty pretty heavy at times, and we cannot just you know uh, have like all the energy on the planet all the time, and all the positive energy especially. So maybe sometimes you just read the person and then come back and ask again once there's time and place. Yeah. um on this note, I actually recently pitched like one of my courses to one entrepreneur. He's a really famous psychologist, and he's got his own course on working on camera. And I actually pitched him to uh, like join forces and do the mutual course. And he haven't been replying for 3 weeks. So I asked, like, any thoughts, any progress on my ask. And he said, not yet, busy right now, got a not the first priority, right? No, it could kind of be pretty traumatic for me to hear that. But I said, okay. And now I know that next time I'm going to try, I will also read his current state and understand if, like, asking and initiating this business conversation will be the proper time and place. So the lesson here, there's always a proper time, proper place to ask for help. Yeah. Um, okay, next thing that I wanted to share with you is not what you should do, but what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't ever in your life you shouldn't ever fake the interest. So if you don't have an authentic, authentic interest, sincere desire to connect with people, connect with the person, and if you don't have like real deep interest in someone, never try to engage in manipulation games. So if you think that you're gonna just flatter the person, and that's gonna in a way gonna ease up this whole process of you asking for something, you are being mistaken. Unfortunately or fortunately, people can sense if you're being fake. And I think it's even worth, right, worth than just failing on some points. Maybe if you fail on preparation, if you fail on preparing and not knowing the subject or knowing the person, if you fail and do that, it's not as fatal, it's not as lethal as faking faking your interest, or faking it just there's to me personally, there's no worse thing, no most more horrendous thing in life than faking yourself. If you fake, try to be someone else to gain some benefits, or put yourself in a favorable position, it might work in the short term, but it will never work in building lasting relationships. So don't ever fake, don't ever approach a person thinking that you can play him around. Okay? Okay. And by the same token, don't use irony. I mean, irony is great as sort of a, first of all, self irony is the best. But when you are directing your irony at the other human being, right, it's actually more often than not perceived as a defense mechanism, right? If you can't be serious for a second and always pulling up some jokes, cracking up jokes and trying, it's nothing else but your defense mechanism. You're hiding from the truth, right? And believe me, I've had my fair deal of experience, negative experience, with people who used irony all across the board. Irony was their go-to card. And sometimes, yeah, maybe I was too sensitive, and it's totally fine. Um, but if you're asking questions and you are sort of incorporating like a dosage of irony, that already showcases that you do not respect the person, because you're asking someone in a fun way and you're not really interested. You're just asking to pull a joke on someone. So I think asking using irony is super detrimental to the relation to building relationships. Yeah, great piece of advice is asking for more. That's what empathetic listening is all about. Replacing judgment with curiosity. It's a Walt Whitman's phrase, I think. It's actually used by Ted Lasso, who's one of my heroes, screen heroes, and I really like Jason. I forgot the name of the actor, but I really enjoyed this fellow, and Ted Lasso is such a perfect character for him. And he said, replace judgment with curiosity. Be curious, not judgmental. People are too quick to judge, but too late to ask. And even if you disagree, ask for questions to help, maybe help people to explain themselves further. Sometimes it's a great sign of effective confrontation. In order to have this effective confrontation and understand where both parties coming from, you have to ask each other uh, open-ended questions, right? As we discussed with Mark Hirschberg, you know, all controversy or all arguments or quarrels are just people trying to optimize for different things. And he set an example like, I want an orange and you want an orange. We both want an orange, but we just haven't taken the courtesy to ask each other like, what exactly do you want? And if we asked, we would understand that, for example, I want, like, you want the inside part of the orange, you want to eat, you're you're hungry, and I have some recipe for orange peels, so I need the peels and the person needs the inside. So we're arguing for nothing just because the lack of the communication. So ask things like, tell me more, would you please let me know more details on this. And don't, and when you're in confrontation, don't do it with irony. Because I remember when I was talking to someone and he was disagreeing with me, he would say like, yeah, and what do you think about that, and how do you think that would work? Like, he already uh, kind of puts me in the trap, letting me know that what I'm going to say he will not take seriously, right? So don't, like, if you want to build relationships, if you want to have effective confrontation, if you want to uh, you know expedite the resolution of whatever argument that you have, ask open-ended questions and try to hold back your desire to speak more and reply. uh, I can tell you the story about Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela is universally recognized as like best leader of all times, one of the best leaders of all times. And his father was a tribal chief, and as a tribal chief, he conducted like all these tribal meetings. And Nelson Mandela distinctly remembers two things because that took him to these tribal meetings. He remembers two things: they were always sitting in a circle, and his dad would always speak the last. Resisting the temptation of giving your perspective or replying or answering or confronting someone's opinion, I think is just the mastery of communication. Taking a pause, just give it extra time and ask for more. And then after the person have told you everything, then you can come back and, even having more knowledge, combat or deliver your truth of the story, right? Yeah. So I think I covered. Oh, and the other point worth mentioning, last but not least, as we're almost into 45 minutes. Whoa. Um, Asking self questions. So self reflection questions. So asking questions from yourself propels this reflection exercise. And if we reflect on our life, especially when we use such thing as affirmations. So affirmations are positive statements. Affirmations are questions, positive questions. Ask yourself, why am I so um, uh, charming? Why am I so intelligent? Why am I so successful? Why people connect with me and want to hear more from me? And these questions will most because the brain is constructed in a way that it always gives answers. So if you're pretty much tricking your brain by asking positive questions, okay, you will find the answers, and guess what? It's going to be the truth. That's a powerful tip of advice, in my opinion. Okay, so I think I'm done. I wrapped up my 10. I think it was roughly 10 life hacks as to how to ask great questions and strengthen your relationships or build rapport and great relationships with people. Now, I had some questions. If you have some questions, do not hesitate to ask. Yaroslav asked me something during the stream. Hey, which is the best way for an investor to get known as many startups as you can at the startup conference? So you're asking if you're an investor and you want to know and you want to familiarize yourself with as many um, startups as possible. Well, I think there is a technical piece of advice, which is the start the conference applications. I remember Attendify. I know a dude, Artyom Yaramchuk, who was running Attendify, and they were actually covering conferences. They would cover all the conferences with special app that would have all the participants so that people could find each other. Um, but I mean, if you are an investor, I think it's not your job to ask all the people walking down the hallway if they are looking for money. It's actually an opposite thing. Usually, startuppers are asking and looking for investors, and it's their job to find you. So I would recommend you to just, I don't know, like uh, put yourself out there, putting a sign, some kind of whatever. Maybe just like add like angel investor, whoever, and they would start uh, kind of approaching you. Well, that's my I would do like that because that's like just marketing. Investors are always in this favorable position as opposed to people who are looking for money. So you want startuppers who have the grit, have the grit, have this will and creativity to find you. So yeah. And I think that if we continue this thought experiment even further, expand it, like questions that investors should ask are really concise, and you just challenge the person who's doing the pitch to do all the heavy lifting, to uh, explain you things that they should understand are of the most importance to you. Because a lot of times, um, startups are talking about themselves. They forget to mention what are the gains for the investor, right? Which is a really cool thing. Okay, guys. I got a bit of a sore throat, so if we have no more questions left, yeah, unfortunately, I'm already concluding this session. You can check out the recording on both on my YouTube and Instagram, and I thank you for participation. Which is the best short question? Like, what do you do? Oh, this is so. You mean how do you get to the essence of what startup is doing, or oh, you mean how do you uncover the person's desire to find an investments? Okay, that's an interesting question. Like, you're coming from the place where you're implying that not all the startups are openly looking for investments. Okay, so what's your current? You can ask, what is the project that you are working on? How about that? What is the project that you are currently working on? Or what is the project that you are developing now? Because developing the project means that it's actually putting it like taking it from ground up or something like that. Okay, guys, I'm gonna hang for a little while. If you have any questions as far as how to ask questions, yeah, you're welcome, Yaroslav. So if you have any questions in relation to the art of asking questions, I mean, what is the idea? It depends on. You see, Yaroslav. You also it's also a matter of what kind of person you are, or what kind of investor you are. If you're on more of a romantic side, you can ask like, "Oh, how are you guys intending to change the world?" or something like that, or how do you see this idea reach millions of people, right? Like, and if you want their idea to go viral, you can ask that. Like, you let them know that you're looking for mm, a concept that would be picked up by the wide audience, millions of people, and asking this, you act kind of like trapping people, because that's a difficult question to answer. So, I remember how I was pitching our business, and I will have a dude from I will have a live stream with Sam. He's one of the co-founders of Design for Decks website. So they help startups to design decks. Or yeah, I've never heard of your company. And this guy, he will shed the light on the most common mistakes that um, business owners do when pitching their businesses, their startups. So yeah, yeah. So we can you can play devil's advocate. Actually, asking questions from the perspective of a devil's advocate is really really entertaining, because because when you're playing devil advocate, you like let the people explain, you force the people to explain things that are even super super evident, super super apparent, but you're kind of letting them, you're asking, what does this mean, or really, can you elaborate? I remember at one networking party, this guy, I asked him, "What do you do?" And he said, "Like, I do pretty much everything." I'm like, "Whoa, everything?" And he like, "Yeah, everything outside of Eugene's responsibilities. I taken care of all of the production, all of the writers, copywriters, blah blah blah." And then he proceeded to saying that we're actually now looking for unit economy. And I'm like, well, it's an investors talk, unit economy or cost effectiveness. And he's like, we're looking for unit economy. And I started to playing devil's advocate. I asked, oh, what is a unit economy, by the way? Oh, really? And how do you find it? Like, so sometimes, yeah, when people are just showing off, you can have a little, you can have some fun at the same time. All right, guys. I hope that was helpful, and thank you for spending this time with me. Wishing you a joyful Saturday evening. And if you need some presentation, public speaking preparation, or a video performance preparation, I can help you or your teams, your businesses with that. Thank you once again, and take care. Slava Ukraini.